I always loved music. It was, I come from a tiny village in the north of England. There were no pianists, but I always loved music. And I remember, I mean, there was so many things that, I mean, ultimately it was just seeing the effect of music. I mean, music's magic. I had a really serious dad. It was a village, not much magic going on. And then you played Elvis, and my dad became Elvis. And, he became romantic and sexy and cool. And my mum would listen to Dolly Parton, and she'd just become optimistic and
Mm.
hopeful, and not worried. And I loved seeing that. And I love the effect it created in me. So as long as I can remember, I've been a huge fan of music. And then the idea of playing, it was just like, why wouldn't you want to do that? It just sounds
Mhm.
amazing. Like, do you want to, like, of course I do. Like, and so I can't remember ever a time in my life where I didn't want to do it. Um, I honestly still feel like a student. I don't think I've finished learning at all. Um, but I mean, it started, my mom tells me I was 3 years old. Um, I honestly, I don't really remember the age. I just remember two big events, and one was, it was a New Year's Eve party, and I used to go to bed pretty early. Obviously, I'm a kid, and I was really grumpy. It was like 7, 8 p.m., and I'm like starting to act out, and the adults are like, "Oh my god!" And my dad's best friend Giovanni Delasio gave me his son. His son's like 9 years old, which automatically made him cool. And it was this
Mhm.
2 octave $20 keyboard, and I instantly fell in love with it. He gave me that and a pair of headphones, and before I knew it, it was 3 a.m. It was just like this, right? And
Mhm.
just playing around with the sound effects and all the different sounds. And I remember that being like a real moment. And then he sent that home with me, and I played it every day. I got up at 5 a.m. I played it before I had to go to school. I used to travel 2 hours to go to my school because it was outside, living in the middle of nowhere. So
Mhm.
I got up really early, and I'd play, and then I'd come back and I'd play. And then I was often child-minded. Like, my parents are working crazy jobs, and my mum's in a government hospital working really long hours. So very often the neighbors were looking after me, and there's this one guy that would look after me at the end of the street, and he had a piano in his house. And I was a real germaphobe as a kid, and everything in his house was filthy except the piano. Uh,
Uh,
and I just remember just being like so enamored by the shape of it, this beautiful grand piano, just looking at it. And then, but he didn't know how to play it. His wife was a concert pianist, and he kept it immaculate. He kept it spotlessly clean. And one day I went and sat on it, and I started noodling, and then I'm just banging my fingers. I'm not doing anything amazing. And then he was like, "Oh my god, that's so good." I was like, "What?" He's like, "That's great. Play me another one." And I was like, "Oh,
mm.
okay." And it's that old adage, like, if you tell a kid he's naughty, they'll become naughty. If you tell a kid he's a genius, they'll become a genius. This guy made me
Mhm.
feel like I could do it. And the first few years of me playing piano was me just sitting there noodling around, learning my own taste, listening to things, accidentally playing something, thinking, "Oh, that sounds really good." Then looking like, "What am I doing?" And it was this really slow, stumbly process. Um, that was how the journey started. Eventually, that graduated to uh, going to get traditional lessons. Um, that was a bumpy experience, to be honest. Um,
Will you talk more about that experience when you started lessons?
yeah, well, it's funny, because so I got really good learning by myself for about 5 or 6 years. Then I was going to in England at 11 years old. You go into a senior school, and where I'm from is a super working class area, and there's not really any good schools. So my parents wanted me to try for this really fancy school for a scholarship, and and I went there, and you kind of have to show off and, like, look, he can do this, and he can juggle, and he can, you know. And so my thing was, like, I could play piano, and
Mhm.
I went and I played, and then I remember seeing through a door that they were, like, talking to each other, and then they came out. My parents were, like, really happy, and they told this really fancy school had told my parents, no, no, like, you've got to take him to the Royal School of Music. Like, this kid's a genius. Like, he's a total savant,
Mm.
and they believed it. And then they told the whole village that I'm going to the Royal School of Music. And then I went to the Royal School of Music to do an audition. I was definitely not accepted. And I show up to
Mhm.
this audition. I don't know anything. Well, I mean, I don't know anything about this world, right? I could play the piano. I loved the piano. I played it all the time, but I didn't know what this was. I was just kind of going along with it. And I showed up, and the guy was like, "All right, so what are you going to play?" And I was like, what do you want me to play?" He said, "Well, play something that you like." And I was like, "All right." Start playing this thing that I love, and I'm like really in the moment, you know. And like 15 seconds in, I get this stop, and I like stop, and he's like, his exact words, "That was disgusting." And I was like, well, I wasn't laughing at the time. I was mortified. You're not sitting straight. What you're doing with your hands, your hand positions all over the place. Your wrists are sloppy. You like just starts laying into like all these things that are. I have no idea. I don't know anything about this stuff. And he's like, "Who sent you here? Like, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, I, I don't know. And I was so mortified. I left that. I left that audition extremely angry at my mom. I was like, I just felt so stupid, and I became convinced I couldn't play the piano. Um, because of
How
everything he said. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what that is or that is or that. Man, I probably don't know how to do this. And I felt so stupid. Um, my dad made me go around the whole village and tell everybody that I didn't get in.
Oh my gosh. How
Yeah.
old were you? How old were you when
I,
this
I was
happened?
10. Yeah. And, but that, at that time, it was like it was invalidating, but it made me want to go get real lessons to understand that stuff. So then eventually we found a teacher that would take me, a local, well, not that local teacher, who was a Royal School of Music, blah, blah, private teacher. And I had private lessons with them. But you know, it just killed my love of music. It was so disciplined and so theoretical and so complicated, and it was all in Latin and Italian, neither of which I spoke, and you know, a lot of symbols which I didn't understand, and it just took it from this subject that I loved more than anything in the world to being a very stale. You know, I dreaded it. I never wanted to practice. I never wanted to show up at the lessons, and that got so bad. I gave up on piano. I gave up on music, which is, you know, look at me now. But I gave up. That was the product of that education was a guy that no longer loves music, doesn't want to play piano, and gave up. Which I, you know, now having built a music school, so many of my students come from such a similar story. Um, Luckily, my story didn't end there. Um, right when I quit, my dad died. And when he died, that was the thing that really, I mean, it was the single biggest thing that happened in my life. He was the driving force of my entire life. He was this larger than life personality. And when he died, I realized, um, like our family just had a hole in it. My life had this big hole in it, and I didn't. You know, I was just lost. I was really lost. I didn't realize how much I leaned on him until he was gone, and for everything. And so I found myself sitting on the piano again, and this time I'm not trying to impress some teacher or get an A or pass an exam. I'm back to being a kid. I just want to connect. I just want to feel that magic. I just want that healing power. I want that. I want the gift of music. And I come back to the piano, and I fall in love all over again. I connected with it. And this time it was different because this time I could noodle and I could play and then I could open my eyes and know what I was doing. I'd know the theory of, oh, so that's why that works. That's why that sounds, oh, okay. And so like weirdly, the combination of them was beautiful, but the journey itself was way more complicated and painful than it needed to be. So it ended up taking me about 20 years to get to the point where I then became a professional. And like I said, I'm still learning now. But yeah,
Wow, I'm so sorry about your father. Was that a surprise?
yeah, very much. We were supposed to go on holiday, and at 11 minutes past 10 on the 24th of August, he dropped down in front of me, shouting my name. He was angry at me, and then he had a heart attack in front of me. And I tried to save his life, and 3 minutes later, he was dead.
Oh my
Super,
God.
super. And you know, the weirdest thing of that, our house goes from being this loud laughter house to silent in an instant, and it never comes back. Our house was always so loud, and TV and music playing, and you know, honestly, like some arguments back and forth, and motion and all this stuff, and then and that's going on. and we're going on holiday and all the motion. Have you packed and this and blah, blah. And then my mom's in grief, like catatonic. She remained in grief for many years after that, silent. And the house was silent. And it was how instantly that occurred in my life. It's how instantly the change was. And, and everything else that comes with that. Then, I had to take over being the guy of the family. And there's a lot of things that went down at that period. And
Mm.
a lot of things that rocked us. Could no longer afford to stay in the school. Couldn't afford the train fare. Couldn't afford hot water. We didn't have heating. There was just a lot of stresses that were like, whoa, that I had to grow up immediately. And thank God I had music. Honestly, thank God I had music, because it is, and it will always be my greatest therapy. It's magic. I mean, you must know this. Like, last night, if I had bags under my eyes, last night, 2:30 in the morning, I couldn't sleep. I came down, I sat on that piano behind me, and I just disappear, and then it's sunrise. And what happened? I've done that so many times in my life. It's greatest gift my parents ever gave me was that.
Thank you for sharing that deeply personal story. I it is so interesting to me that you're talking about how um, when you started, you're this child that doesn't know anything formal about the piano. You're playing around, and then you're thrown into this world where you're told all these things that don't really make sense to you. It just feels overwhelming, and you stop. And then this moment happens in your life that brings you back eventually to the piano, and then you're able to bring it all together and make sense of it. Is that am I hearing you correctly on that, on how
100%.
that?
I should have said what you said.
Oh, no. I just want to make sure I'm synthesizing all of it because it's really an extraordinary story. And then of course this leads you to, okay, so I want to know more. You've got me now.
All
I want
right.
to know more about your playing, and now you're taking the stuff that you learned and you're making sense of it in your own way. You're bringing it all together. So then what happens in your life?
Yeah. Um, well, this is a really funny coincidence, but right before my dad died, um, I wrote a song. It was the first time I'd written a song. I don't think it was a particularly great song, but it was a song, and I'd never written a song before, and it was very cool. I was like, oh my God. Because I was in, doing the grades and the formal education before that. It was doing a bunch of stuff I didn't want to do on the piano. I don't really want to play that song. And I wrote my own song, and my dad was a very stern guy, very disciplinarian, very kind of very masculine man. And well, it was the only time I ever saw my dad cry. I was playing this song, and I used to wait till my parents left the room to play. I was real shy, very, very shy kid. Got picked on at school, blah, blah. And this one time I'm playing this song that I wrote, and he'd come in the room, and I didn't even notice he'd come in the room. And then I stopped playing, and he was sitting on the floor crying. My dad used to like to sit on the floor with his arms on the couch. So he's sitting on the floor with his arms on the couch crying. And he told me how it reminded him of his grandfather. He was raised by his grandfather.
Mm.
And he told me, I want you to play that at my funeral. And I was like, huh? And he's 50 years old when he told me, I don't even know how much, what? And I'm never going to remember that. And he died the next day. And a week later, I was playing it at his funeral. Now, the weird thing of that is it was that brought me back to the piano. And, I mean, as weird and trippy as that was, and still is, honestly, when I say it, I'm like, well, it's just, what is that? But that then got me on this journey when I was sitting on the piano of like being more creative with it and making up my own stuff and taking songs, but then making them my own and really just going through my own stuff. Now, I was doing that, and then that was kind of my self-therapy. At the same time, I've got this thing going on in my life where we never really talked about money. I don't know if we had any or didn't have any. We didn't live a fancy life or anything. We just never really talked about it. To now suddenly front and center of every discussion, like, no, we can't do that. We can't afford it. We can't do that. We can't do that. My mom was on £7,000 a year working in a government hospital. It was like, right. And then it's on me. So I have all of this beauty in the music, and then I've got some challenging stuff going on in life and having to handle a lot of things that came when he died. And so music as a career, or like anything beyond a beautiful thing that I could just do to make me have an amazing life, it's like a hobby. It's just a nice thing to do, right? But
Mhm.
then I work hard at school, and then I just did what the school said. And if you work hard, then you go to university, and then you work hard at university, and then you get a good job, and then that's the dream. And then finally, there's no more money problems, and oh my gosh, then I'll finally be happy, and everything will be. I was buying into that, and so I did it, and I worked really hard, and I got straight A's, and then I did all the rest of it, got straight A's, and then I go to university. I got a triple first class honors, did 3 degrees, and concurrently, and then I got a job in investment banking where I was supposed to be successful. Uh, I didn't feel very successful. I didn't like it. It wasn't me. It wasn't my. I had no affinity for it at all. It that job meant nothing to me. I wasn't helping anybody. It was completely meaningless. And as much as I felt lucky when I got that job, I was so happy when I got that job, because I felt like I'd made it out of this kind of South Yorkshire, poor area of England, only to realize that money itself has a price. And the price that I was now paying for it was all my happiness, all of my time. Could never see my friends, could never have a relationship. I worked there 7 days a week, 20 hours a day on stuff that I didn't care about at all. And I knew I would never care about it. And I knew that that was a journey. And if I stay with it, I'm going to make millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars. And if I do that, then I'm going to be just like my dad. And one day I'll be laying on a floor dying. And just like my dad, when he was dying, I could see in his eyes, I will have panic and regret and all of those things. And so I decided not to do that. And I'd love to say it was immediate. It wasn't. It took me nearly 2 years to quit. It's very scary. I had no safety net. I,
Mhm.
I, you know, I have no like. I don't know what I'm doing. And I felt. I was like. I was very aware. I got lucky to get that job, and scary, right? Scary to walk away from that.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
did. I burned that bridge, and I walked away to play piano in the street. um, every single friend I had in my life distanced themselves from me. There was an email thread going around in the office making a joke about me, how I'd lost my mind and become like a beggar on the street. And I was still on that email chain. So I saw the emails, which was at the time pretty, that was hard to read. Um, and,
Mhm.
but all of that, I just stopped caring about people's approval. I'd like lived my entire life trying to get the A, trying to be impressive, build the resume, get the job, then be impressive in the job because I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that really got that job because of their parents' connections or their daddy is the CEO of whatever, whatever. And I'm like the kid from they used to call me the diversification hire. I'm the kid from the village. And like all I've got is like what's in between my ears, right? So um, I always felt like I was on the back foot. And and then I just stopped caring. It was weird. I stopped caring. And again, it was finding the piano. I didn't leave the bank thinking I would become a musician, by the way. I left the bank
Mhm.
I was like, I got to find what I want to do. And I'm not going to find it sitting here stressed all day, every day. So I quit with really no game plan. Less than 30 minutes later, after seeing a piano in a secondhand shop, um, and then buying it and pulling it out to the front of the secondhand shop, and then just playing it in the street. That was 30 minutes later. And then suddenly, again, I find myself on piano. And again, it's like the ultimate therapy. Except this time, when I was playing piano in the street, I finished that song. And, I was very nervous when I was playing, which is a good sign because I'd felt nothing in banking. I was numb the entire experience. Didn't care if I win or lose. And suddenly I'm scared. It felt nice to have something to be scared about. It felt nice to like care about something enough to even feel scared. And I play this song and I drift away and I finish that song. I turn around and there's 600 people standing in the street. And one of the most incredible moments of my life. Everybody standing there completely silent. Nobody clapped and everybody just stood silent. I finished that song. And then for the next 40 minutes, it was talking to one person after the next person after the next person. They're hugging me. They're telling me their stories. They're taking pictures with me. I don't know why. They want me to sign things. I don't know why. Um, and being English and awkward, I threw my hat on the floor it filled up with coins and money, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And I went and counted it. I immediately like took it. I went across the street, I counted it. It was £16.34 and a krona, the best money I've made in my life.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Well, wait a minute. What if I just went and tried that again?" I went out, played another song, same thing happened. I was like, "Oh my god." And again, so it'd been sitting there my whole life, and it's funny, like my journey of piano, as you're asking these questions, was just constantly like falling in love and then somehow retreating from it, falling in love and retreating from it. And the second I stopped doing that and leaned into it, it started to build what is now my life, and going around the world and playing for many millions of people and just sharing beauty with the world. So it's a very lovely life to do that.
That is incredible. I just there's so much to take away from your story about just the fact that you keep walking away from this thing that you're falling in love and you walk away because you think it's something else you're supposed to be doing, right? Whether it's
Completely.
because you have to be, and even just think about when you're a kid and you're watching your family struggle. And were you an only child? I can't remember if you told me
No,
that.
I have a brother. He's 11 years older, but he joined the military when he was 16. So when I was 5, and then he was in war zones, and he was deployed a lot. So we had a very close relationship in the 2 weeks per year that he was at home. Um, but I didn't get to see a great deal of him um, growing up.
Mm. So you were alone with your mom. It was you and your mom,
Yeah.
basically. And you're watching her struggle and you're thinking, I need to make money. I need to be able to,
I wanted to do everything
sustain
in
this
my power to
life.
remove her suffering. And there was a lot
Mm,
of angles to that. And part of it was financial, part of it was emotional, part of it was just, I want to remove, this is the lady who's given me everything, right? This is the lady who, my dad would sometimes, I mean, my dad was an aggressive guy. He's an angry guy, could be a violent guy. And she'd put herself in front of me. This is the woman who's protected, provided. She's taught me kindness. She's taught me love. She's done everything for me. She's the most important person in my life. And now she's broken. And I want to do everything I can to just vacuum that suffering from out of her. And either I'll take it or I'll just put it somewhere. But whatever it is, I want to absolve all of that from her, because it was so um unnatural to see somebody who's like that much light be just encased in all of this darkness. And
mm,
I just wanted to handle that, and that became very overriding. Still is, honestly, still a very big thing for me. Um, it became a very yeah. There's a moment, I think, in everybody's life where you go from that relationship with your parent where they're the ones that look after you, and then there's a moment where you realize, no, it's your turn to look after them. I think it's a natural cycle. It came a lot younger for me maybe than some people, but I weirdly, I don't even lament it. Like, now I look back, I know it sounds like a sad story, but I don't have any regret or pain about the whole thing. It's shaped an amazing life, and we have the most amazing relationship. Um, and it all came from that, really. Um,
Well, I was going to ask is where your mom is now and how's your relationship? And, what is your mom up to?
I mean, my mum's my best friend, so relationship couldn't be any better. She's about 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now.
Oh,
Uh,
that's amazing.
yeah, we're gonna see her tomorrow. She's gonna cook. We're shooting a bunch of stuff in this really fancy place that I'm sitting. Um, we're shooting some stuff for the school, and we're shooting, recording a music video here. And it's a real. I'd love to be. I'm on a big static camera. I'd love to show you around, but it's a very fancy house. Johnny Depp was just here, and Mick Jagger was here just before that, and Ed Sheeran lives down the street. It's all very swanky, but it's this 1,000-year-old house in a tiny little village. And then, as big and fancy as that is, I'm taking the whole crew tomorrow to my mum's house, and she's making everybody Yorkshire puddings, which
Oh,
is which
that's
is so. My mum's part of the team. She's sometimes she's my cheerleader, sometimes she's like my toughest audience. Um, but I love her to bits. She is an amazing, amazing lady. She's retired now. She was a midwife, um, delivered thousands and thousands of lives into this world. Grew up with a lot of babies coming to the house that she brought into this world. Um, Amazing woman, truly amazing woman.
mm.
Very, very kind.
Well, when did you decide? Well, first off, I was like, well, I'm going to try to move us back into the interview, but I really want to hear more about your mom and what she's making because I really sounds really good, and I wish I was with you
I'll
in
tell you
person.
everything. We
And I,
can run as long as you want. Ask me whatever you like. It's no problem.
well, it's just I love the stories about, your family, and I really appreciate you opening up about that because I think when we see these short videos of you on social media and everything is so seems so fancy, and sometimes I think we forget that you're a person and you have a mom and and a dad, and this is your life, and it's extraordinary, Stephen. It's really extraordinary. And
Yeah.
I want to know, so at what point did you move from now I'm playing the piano and I'm enjoying this and look what the joy that it's bringing people to, I want to be a teacher now. I want to give this gift to other people. How did you transition into that?
Yeah. It's funny. I resist. That's another thing. I resisted that for so long. I don't want to be a teacher. I want to be a rock star. And look, the true story of this is since playing as a kid, people would come up to me afterwards and be like, "Oh, it's just, maybe you've had the same thing." I think this is kind of universal amongst pianists, but certainly it is for me. Ever since being a kid, when I play, I can just bet money on it. There's at least, if there's a room of 3 people, at least one of them is going to come to me and tell me a story about how they've always wanted to play piano. And it's the same story. Every time it's the same story. They've always wanted to play piano, and then they tell me a story about a time when they tried, and then there's always a but. It didn't really work out. And I had lessons when I was a kid, and then they'd relay like the same experience I had. It was complicated, it was difficult, I didn't get anywhere, I gave up, blah, blah, blah. I wish I never gave up. Or I tried this thing on, some app, and I just got confused. It didn't really go anywhere or whatever. And after hearing this like a few thousand times and saying repeatedly, someone should do something about that. I totally know what you mean. Like I went through that. Yeah, somebody should do something about that. Um, um, it then dawned on me that maybe I could do something about that. And but I was really nervous because like of my past experience in music education, the idea of going back into that world, I was like, oh, like it's the last place I want to go back to with these like fusty, dusty rules, blah blah. I'm like, oh, it'd be the worst thing I could imagine to be in that peer group. Um, by the way, I have nothing against piano teachers at all. Like I have a lot of respect for them, and without them, I wouldn't be here. And I don't want it to come across as that. It's just I really have a good experience with it, and the higher up you go in music, the worse that gets. Weirdly, and so the idea of being a music teacher, I was like, oh god, and I'm not patient. Like, oh god, and but what I did very privately, out of my little place in North London, is I was designing a show where I could pull audience members onto the stage, and I realized pretty early on when I was performing that like the more I can include the audience, the better the show is. And so I built this like reputation of doing. I have a very interactive live gig, and I was doing this thing of like bringing people on the stage and then getting them to like do something while I do something, and it makes them sound amazing. And then I was researching in my house like little things I could show somebody in literally 10 seconds on a stage where they could then play, and then I could do something as like a bit for my stage show,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
I find this thing, and then I find this thing, and then I find this thing, and then I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. And then I'm going out and I'm doing it, right? And when I was doing that, the number of people that were then like, oh my god, like I wanted to learn piano, and the number of people coming up and telling me that same story about how much they want to learn piano was going up and up and up. And I was like, okay. And I started to see like, oh, like I think I got a feeling for it, like I just through interacting with a lot of people, I got a feeling for it. I was like, look, I think I found my lane, and my lane was this. It was like, look, you want to go play Rachmaninoff, then it's traditional music school, and you should go do it. But for the people that love music, like every person in the audience is me as a kid, and me now, to be totally honest. I love music. So somebody there who's like loving the music and then coming up to me and saying, oh my God, I want to play. I realize they're like me as a kid, and they don't necessarily need all the fusty, dusty, blah, 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 blah. So why do I need to worry about competing with that? Why don't I just make my own thing that's like Stephen's passionate journey of piano? And which was originally what the school was going to be called, by the way. And
Stephen's passionate journey of piano.
that was the name, but it was too long, and half the world spells Stephen with a V and half spells it with a PH, so that wouldn't have worked. So, yeah. Anyway, it was going to be called Stephen's Passionate Journey in Piano, and I started out. I tried it on 49 people, teaching them random things out of sequence with no context, and then I got all the steps right, and then I was like, right, good. Now I realized that steps need to be in a certain order. And then I was tinkering with the order and, okay, we're going to add this, we're going to do this. And then I realized there's a bunch of stuff that's missing in traditional music education. And that's why it gets so sticky and awkward. And actually, when we put those steps in, we can get rid of a lot of the intelligentsia. It's not actually that required. It's true. It's astrophysics is true. Astrophysics can project the vector of the ball as Nadal hits a ball. But Nadal doesn't need to know astrophysics to be one of the greatest tennis players that ever lived. And it's the same thing in music. Like, there's a lot of true theory. You don't necessarily need to know the amount of complicated stuff that I had to suffer through to just enjoy playing songs and connect with the piano and be able to write your own music and improvise and play by ear. And these are like the common goals of people. So I started devising my own way, and then it just became infectious. I couldn't deny it. I couldn't deny the pleasure of giving somebody that gift and knowing what it means because of what it's done for my life. Knowing what it means that now forever that person, on a bad day, on a good day, on a bad day, on any day, can put beauty into their environment. They can walk into an ugly room and make it very beautiful. They can have a very ugly day and make it very beautiful. They can take any situation and then you just make a song about it and suddenly the situation's romantic. That's a weird thing. It's a superpower, and to give people that was more of a pleasure even than performing, because performing's this like big rush and it's 2 hours. It's amazing. But I was leaving people with something that whether I see them again or don't see them again, it's going to change their life forever. And that became its own kind of addiction. And then it snowballed and it snowballed. And then I was doing both, and they both kind of worked together very synergistically. Because now if people come up to me and they're like, oh my God, I wish I could play, I'm like, stop right there. Here's my card. And so that's how it started. It started very organically from that. And I was playing a lot of fancy private shows. The way that it became like the Ridley Academy that you see now is I was playing these fancy private shows for extremely wealthy people, and they would often book me, I mean, they still do, but they'll book me for like, okay, come on a Wednesday and it's like a private gathering. But then very often they're like, oh, can you stay? And again, they want to learn. And so I was getting hired by these guys to do these exclusive, like 1 or 2 day workshops for them and their friends and make it very fun and very entertaining and, get them writing their own songs, even if they never touch a piano, just cool stuff that makes people, wow, mas. And so then I wanted to make a product that I could leave with them when I'm gone so that they could go through and get everything they need to just properly be able to play. So I made this product. It's very luxurious, like unnecessarily so. I like unnecessarily so. Just seriously, like $80,000 microphones, stupid, like totally not needed. Like this one of a kind blues in the piano, absolutely unnecessary. It's just totally unnecessary. But because I was imagining it was going to go to these fancy people, I wanted it to look and feel fancy. Mm-hmm. And I like making fancy things. It's more fun to create a professional product. And then COVID came, and I was like, all right, all my shows are cancelled. I've got all this time. I built quite a big social media following, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to start selling it on there. And it started snowballing. And then I took all the money that I was earning from selling it on Instagram and just reinvested it in ads. Didn't know anything about making ads. I'm the first person to say, even I find my ads annoying. Like, I really do. I hate my own voice. I hate my face. I don't like the way my nose looks ever. I hate my ads, but I do them because it brings people, and then I get to give them music. And so I love that more than I hate that. So there's a lot of things I do within this company which wouldn't necessarily be my first choice of something to do. Like even the social media, like the goofy kind of stuff, as you might be able to tell, like I'm a fairly down to earth person, but this larger than life thing's what's needed to make something pop on Instagram in today's like Instagram shorts. And well, all right, I can do it, but I do it because there's a purpose to it. I don't do it because I want somebody to click like. I don't do it because I
Yeah.
need some admiration or to be told that I'm special. I do it because this is going to cause people to go, oh, maybe I could do this. Oh, and then they're going to come
Mhm.
in, and then I'm going to show them some stuff, and they go, oh my God. And then I'm going to bring them a little more, and then they go, wait a minute. And then a little bit more, and then they're going to be playing music, and then a little bit more, and then they're going to have magic for the rest of their life. And I know that because I've done that now. And
Mm.
and so yeah, that's the not so concise story of Ridley Academy.
It was perfect. It was perfect. I love it. I loved it. And okay, so talk to us about what the Ridley Academy is today, because how long has it been going on for? How many students and how is it structured?
Yep.
Just tell us all about it.
Yeah, so we're just over 31,000 students, um, over 40 countries, from 5 years old to 95 years old. Um, I would say um, we're about 70% American. We're 10% British, and 20% is rest of world. Um, it's the most incredible thing. It's just an incredible thing. I started with this one product called the Complete Piano Masterclass. That really is everything you need to go from, well, it's the thing that you're going through. It goes from what is a piano, where I pull a piano to pieces, right
Which is
through
super
to,
fun.
yeah,
Super fun, by the way.
thank you. It's meant to be. It's meant to be something that makes you love music. Not only playing the piano, but like getting a craft and a passion. That's, it's supposed to be called Stevens. You got it.
Yes.
But uh, so that product is the foundation. It takes anybody from zero to playing the piano, being able to read and write music with a full understanding of what they're doing, so they don't have to sit there thinking about it. They don't have to sit there memorizing things. They can just play with the same way that I play. And then what I realized going through that product is that when somebody starts getting all these amazing skills on piano, well, this is really obvious. I just didn't realize it until it happened. But the piano is basically this ultimate tool of self-expression. And so naturally, as you get better and better and better at it, your goals become more like towards yourself. And they can go in all kinds of different directions. So we could have like one person and they're like, oh my God, I want to make jazz. And this person's like, oh, I hate jazz, but I want to play for my church. And this person's like, oh, I want to make symphonies. And this person's like, oh, I want to. And everybody goes off in these different directions. I want to do pop. I want to do this. I want to do blues. I want to. And I was like, wait, okay, right. How am I going to do and then that gave birth to this second program, which we just launched a few months ago. And that's called the mentorship. And that's a very personalized program. Piano Masterclass is the same for everybody because it's the universal language. It's the language everybody in the world speaks. And the rules of that language are the same. It doesn't matter if you're from Botswana or China or Brazil. So that's a completely standard thing. It will never need to be changed. I changed it so many thousands of times to get it to what it is right now. It's perfect. Saying that, I am actually adding a section this week because I can't help myself. But that's just because I'm a nerd. But the mentorship's the opposite of that. The mentorship is completely personalized. So you come in, you get a complete personalized assessment, and then we're going to be working on your goals, handling your obstacles. It has one-on-one coaching. It has group coaching. I get involved in it. I do song tutorials. I'm doing Zoom sessions with the students. Super hands-on, super personalized, which is amazing. And so now, like, that's kind of a new thing that we've like thrown ourselves into, and it's super, super, super fulfilling because I really build a relationship with these students, and I get like proud dad syndrome, but I'm getting proud dad syndrome with like a dude who's like 84 and he's been wanting to play for 70 years, and now he's playing, and I feel like proud dad, but he's like my senior.
Mhm.
But it's the most wonderful thing. I immediately before I came on here, I did a welcome call to the new guys who joined. I do a welcome call every week, and they all introduce themselves, and it's lovely. I've got everybody from a neuroscientist to a horse doctor, not a vet, a horse doctor, to a 6-time Grammy Award winner, a beautiful lady who retired. She's wanted to play her whole life, and her husband died, and now she's finally coming back to it. Through to a young boy who wants to be the next Justin Bieber. It's just cool. It's cool, and that's a school. So that launch was about 4 years ago.
Hmm.
So in 4 years, we've gone to that, which I could never have imagined. And, all my best friends work for me now, or with me, I should say. Uh,
You're like the Adam Sandler of piano, of like you get all your friends around, how he makes movies with all of his friends. You're
yeah,
just like, hey, come on board. We're doing this with piano. We're
100%. Like, yeah. I mean, a lot of the people who work for me started as students, and
mm-hmm,
we became friends. And then they liked the school so much, they were like, "Look, I want to help." And they have a skill set, and they're like,
mm-hmm,
"Look, you need a blah blah blah." The first person was like, "Okay, you need a marketer." One of my first students, Serge, uh, he was a student, and then he has this online business, and he like understands all the online thing, and I don't know anything about it. I'm a piano guy. He's like, right, I'm going to come and work for you because you need this. And then the next guy was like, okay, you need a coder. And I'm going to we're going to make your website. Like, okay. And then the next,
mm-hmm.
okay, you need like an email guy. Okay. And it's so funny. It's funny how it's grown completely organically and a lot of like, you listen to these like wishy-washy corporate bullshit things. Sorry for swearing, but um,
You're okay.
yeah, this really is just like, this couldn't be more family vibes. I made it in my kitchen. Um, and my friends are all around me. And so they saw it, and I'm like, hey, do you want to do it? And my friend's having like a hard time in his job. I'm like, well, why don't you come here? Like, we can probably work something out. And it's
Mm.
just been lovely. And kind of the same with the students. Like, I know this is a weird thing to say. I don't have, okay, this is going to be controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think if you took the entire population and if you took a random 1,000 people, about 900 of those people are incredibly positive, contributive, great members of society that bring value to the world, whether it's making coffee or driving the bus, or like, there's many different ways that someone would contribute value. And then there's 10% of that, about 100 people that just want to see the world burn. And very toxic, sour people for whatever reason. There could be a million reasons somebody goes that way. And so you would think, with 31,000 people, wow, I'm going to have some real problems. It's shocking to me that somehow this school only attracts good people. I just have lovely, nice students, and they all support each other. There's like such a sense of community. I did a survey on the new mentorship students. Like, what do you like most about the mentorship, so that we can improve it, right? I love to do surveys. And the number one answer was these personal song tutorials I do with them. The number two answer was the community and the fact that everybody helps each other. We've had people get married in that group. We've had people fly across
Oh
the world to
wow.
live with each other. I didn't create that. It just kind of, I just put a place there and it happened. But it's amazing
Mm-hmm.
to me because you go on Instagram and it's all divided. You go on YouTube and it's all like trolls. You go on any of these social medias, and that toxic 10% has the loudest voice. And I think they spend the whole time on social media using it. And and they can make you feel like the whole world is toxic if you just look on those apps. What's really lovely about this is we can have this private community, just positivity. And every now and then a toxic person slips through the wire and I kick them out because I get to do that, which is fun.
Because it's your program. You get to do
Yeah,
what you want.
it's an amazing thing to do. I'm like, I don't owe you this. There you go. There's your money. See you. And then they go write
Mm-hmm.
sour things online, and that's fine.
Do you have critics of your program, by the way, when you were talking about this, like trolls
Yeah,
and sour things online? Do you have them? And then what did they say when they're like, "Oh, this about the Ridley Academy"? What?
yeah,
Just talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
sure. I mean, look, I've had, my life has been a journey of a lot of First thing I went to do in music was getting criticized. Got told I'm disgusting. Um, I've had that my whole life. Like, I went playing piano in the street, and they told me that I play it too hard, and I banged the piano, and then very divisive. But then some people book me for these shows because they love the way I play, and these people don't like it, and these people love it. And but okay, and then I'd make music, and then some people like, what? There's so many opinions, right? And in the beginning, I get very swayed by that, and like, oh my god, I want to please everybody. And then again, my life has been progressive layers of giving up on trying to please everybody, um, and but not in an apathetic way, just in a,
Yeah.
look, I'm gonna have to go with my own integrity at some point, and let the chips fall where they may. Like, I'm gonna do what I think's right, and if you like it, that's great, and if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. Like, we're a big world, lots of people, and I realized this in music, where I was like, look, I don't need I was so confused as an artist because I'd play a show and every bit of feedback, I was like changing my entire art to what they said. Oh, I like that one, but I didn't like that one. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I'm never going to play that again. I'm so sorry. Then the next guy, oh, I love that one, but I hate. I was like, what do I do? Until I realized, look, it doesn't matter. Like, why don't I make something that's sincere and brilliant and beautiful, and I put it out there, and the people that like that are going to like it. And there's 7 billion people. If 1% of the population loved my music, I'd be like bigger than the Rolling Stones. I was like, that's a lot of fans, right? So I had this huge cognition thanks to social media where I was like, wow, like if I just put stuff out that I think's amazing, it somehow finds the people who like it. Great.
Mm.
The
Mhm.
school is not that because this was my first, like, I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about marketing. I don't know anything about, I've had to learn all this stuff by doing it. I don't know anything about running staff or like the employer thing and accountancy. And well, I know a bit about accountancy from banking, but not like this. And so pretty much everything's been a learning curve. So I made some mistakes and then I get criticized for that. That's fine. I can have it. So like my first mistake was very ambitiously, like the first ad that I made for the school, I was like, I'm going to teach you how to play piano in 3 minutes a day. Now, the reason that I said 3 minutes is because I used to do this on stage in less than a minute. And I used to time it because
Mm.
I was on stage. So I know, but it turns out that me doing it on stage when I'm next to them and them doing it by themselves when they're at home, it's not the same thing. And so very quickly I was like, oh, okay, not quite. And you get the first students through and then you start learning, you look and like, okay, actually, no, it's more like 10 minutes. And I had all these students feeling bad because they're 3 minutes in. And I'm like, no, okay, right. Well, it turns out like a good focused 10 to 15-minute chunk, if you can do little and often of that, that's actually how we get the best progress. So that was like a learning curve. And then what I realized as the school started to grow, very naively, I like went out and reached out to music teachers to collaborate. I was like, hey, like you love music and I love music and you teach and I teach. So why don't we just, and that backfired so hard, like so hard.
Mm.
Because, you know, again, just pure naivety. But basically then what would happen is like, people go and they leave these kind of fake negative reviews about the school online when in actual fact they're a music teacher or they've got a competing product or they're sponsored or they're getting paid by some other company that I can't name for legal reasons. And this particular company has paid quite a lot of people to go and make hit piece stuff against the school and then subtly, oh, you should try this instead. And I was like, what?
Mm.
That's pretty gross. Um, but you got to grow up. I'm like, okay, all right, that's okay. That happens. And then, so there's that. And then, I get criticized a lot. I get criticized a lot. But, I look at like the figures I've most loved in history. I don't know why I'm thinking of Churchill because he's not like in any way a figure. It's like, I don't know why I'm looking at a picture of Churchill. That's why I'm thinking of that. The house I'm currently sitting, I'm literally looking at Winston Churchill. I was like, oh, Churchill. It reminds me of the Queen. The Queen once told me a story. This like totally sounds like, but whatever. But I played a private party for the Queen one time in Kensington Palace Gardens,
Mhm.
and I asked her who's the best person she ever met, and she said Churchill. She told me this whole story about Churchill, and said that at the time everyone thought he was stupid and a buffoon, and like they all wanted him out, and then he's now remembered as like one of the great British leaders. And
Mhm.
anyway, yeah, I get lots. I get loads of criticism, but it comes down to the same thing. It's the same with the music. It comes to this point of like, look, I know what I'm doing, and I know why I'm here, and I do need to take responsibility for the valid criticisms and handle it. Like I had one where one of my buddies is an adventurer, and then he wanted a job because he's going on an adventure, and so I was like, all right, you can deal with like disgruntled people or like any like customer service stuff. You're going to be the guy. Well, it turns out that was a terrible decision because he goes to like the outback and doesn't get internet for 4 days, and then all these people like completely have a tizzy fit, and they're like, "What the heck is going on? Oh my god!" And then they go online and write how they've been scammed, which they obviously haven't. And then we handle it, and then they don't take down the thing, and then okay, all right. So I'm responsible. Ultimately, like I choose to believe I'm responsible for everything that comes my way, and then some of it is just personal and horrible. But I'm used to that. I've had that my whole life. You want to be anybody in this world, and there's going to be that 10% of trolls that just fester on your desire to do something good for the world.
Mm.
And I see that on every single social media post. You look underneath it, and there's just that that same like category of people that I wasn't so aware of until I became a public person. But long before the school, I was having it as a musician, and all the time, it's just a sour few that get into everything, and they can be very distracting. And I've been very distracted by all of that. I took it very personally. This means a lot to me. This is not just like some casual thing that I do. We work 7 days a week doing this. It's everybody in the company works 7 days a week, not because I tell them to. We have most people that, it's like a lot of people, we have literally no contract. It's we just work because we care. And so, of course, like criticisms, you take them really hard. But again, you reach this point of just like, wow, that's so distracting from what I'm here to do. I'm not here to like please this toxic person. I'm here to teach this other person that really wants to learn piano how to play piano. I'm just gonna go do that. And so that's been the journey. But I have to say honestly, like I never took responsibility for it. Like doing this that I'm doing with you, I never did that because I felt uncomfortable doing it, and I get a bit scared and nervous, and you know, so I didn't do it. But I should do it because if I don't, then somebody else is going to communicate a bunch of BS, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. All right, I better
Mhm.
go out there and start talking then. And
Well,
yeah,
I'm really grateful that you haven't given up. And I think that what you're sharing right now is so important. And you do talk about this in the academy. I think, hopefully I won't get this wrong, but I think you say that the difference between practice and failure is giving up. Like
100%.
and so that's exactly what you've just described, is that these things, challenging things, even horrible, right, just destructive, very self like destructive, these things that have happened to you, and they've been painful, and you've worked through them, and you've held on to the fact that it's okay for you to have your thing. And I want to go back to something that you said earlier too. You said, I'm not against piano teachers. That's not what I'm saying here. And I think this all ties into your whole message of you can have your thing and I'll have my thing over here. And the world is wide enough, right? For everybody to have their thing and to be happy. And I think the people that are most miserable are the people that they don't see the nuance in that. I mean, of course, there's right and wrong and good and evil in some things, right? Where you have black and white things. But then there are things where you can say, hey, like Steven's doing his thing over here, and you're serving a group of people that are meant for you. And then these other piano teachers, I think of myself as a voice coach. Not everyone is for me. And
Right.
and I it's not about me. I want them to find the person that's right for them. And it sounds like you're the kind of person, from just listening to you, and you're a lovely person, by the way. I just am really enjoying just getting to know you. And also, I love that you talk about in the academy that you don't have energy, you are energy. And but you're also very down to earth. And so this interview, I sort of wondered what this interview is going to be like because you are so energetic in the cat in all these videos, right? But then I'm seeing how human you are too,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I think that lends a lot of validity to what you're doing, and so I'm totally here for it.
It's funny, and I met quite a lot of business leaders as a musician. I get booked to play a bunch of fancy events. I played Monaco Yacht Week a few weeks ago with Jason Derulo. That was cool, and he's a cool guy. And I think this dude has like 77 platinum singles, or he has some crazy statistic. When the guy was introducing him to the stage, I was like, whoa. And afterwards, I was chatting with him, and I was chatting to like a couple of really big business guys that were there,
Hmm.
and they were like, dude, welcome to the big leagues. He's like, this is nothing. He's like, welcome, like, finally, you must finally be doing something. Like, get yourself some more haters. I was like, oh, wow,
Hmm.
okay. But you just hit the nail on the head. Like, I'm not here in competition. They're being competitive. I'm not in competition. I'm not trying to be in competition. This was never made like, oh, that guy over there, I'm going to take his job. I don't, not at all. Like, I just saw a gap for people exactly like me. Like, when I was growing up, I want the thing that I've created now. I'm making this for the 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 11-year-old, 15-year-old version of me that was missing this thing. It would have been perfect for me. And so I make it exactly for that kind of person. And then everybody, like you say, everybody resonates, it comes in with it. When I wanted to go into investment banking. I did that because I Googled what's the highest paid job when I was at university. To be honest, I didn't really want a job. I loved like this student going around. I was traveling. It was backpacking. It's great. The idea of then having to get like a serious job and be an adult, I was like, oh God. I'd like hustled and nickeled and dimed to that point, and I'd loved it, honestly. And I'd been a cleaner, and then I'd worked at this car boot store. You guys would call it like a boot sale or a junkyard sale. But in England, we have this
Mm-hmm.
thing, car boot. You drive your car to a field and everybody like sells their stuff out the back of their car. So that was my first job. Worked there as a kid illegally, and but I loved it. And did all these like what you call in England tin pot jobs, and I loved them all. And it was always like an adventure, and I was always going to another location. It's like, okay, I'm doing this so that I can get to there. Like I'm doing this job because then I get enough money, and then Mum's gonna get a new car, and then there was always like a goal to the thing. And then the idea after university of like, oh, so now it's just 40 years of actuary or law or oh god. And I was like looking at all the graduate options that were at university, and I was like, man, they're all so boring. And then when I went for that job, I had a bunch of people around me like, oh, just hating on me, basically. Good friends, close friends. Like, how could you do that? I remember having an argument with a guy who was like morally disgusted that I would apply for banking because bankers are evil and what you're going to do and blah, blah, blah. And we were like close friends. Really affected me. And maybe I'm like, am I evil? I don't think I'm evil. I really don't think I'm evil. And it was playing on my mind. Then I get into banking, and then I go in banking, and it's like I'm not part of that club because they're like, they're from super like generational wealth families. I'm not part of that. Like I'm not from that world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's this like pushback. I'm trying to do something, and there's a pushback. And then I leave to play piano in the street, and everyone in my life, my friends, everybody close to me, tells me I've lost my mind. What are you doing? My mum tells me, go beg for your job back. You have to get that job back. That was hard. And then I start playing in the streets. 600 people stop every 5 minutes. Massive smiles and cameras. And they're so happy. And then the police come and tell me that I'm causing a noise disturbance, which is the most offensive thing that you could possibly call the music. But I'm not here to make noise. What are you talking about? Like, what's noise? Like the crap blurting out the Starbucks speakers at full volume. Yes, that's a noise disturbance. Like, I'm playing Chopin. What are you talking about? Like, and they made me feel like a criminal, and they'd move me on all the time. Then I go to different countries, same thing, right? To this mixture of like feeling fantastic in the moment and doing the show, and then some person coming up trying to stop you. I did a show. I played in a very, very, very fancy music hall. And you're supposed to be a classical pianist to play in this music hall. And I'd sold out the music hall in 20 minutes. Classical artists don't do that. So the organizer was like, oh my God, like you're the guy. And everybody on Instagram was super excited to go. But the hall itself, they hated that I was going there. And they were very, I don't want to even say their name because I don't want to give them any credibility, but they were like super racist against English people. They don't like British people. And they don't like that I'm not classical. And they don't like that all the usual stuff that you got to sit like this and your elbows have to do this and you got to be blah blah blah. Everybody's got to be this carbon copy of like an almost Mozart, and if you're not that, then you're not a musician. Just so tired, right? And so they had all these rules, and I'm not allowed to go on because I take my shoes off when I play, and that's like absolutely the biggest sin you could possibly do on the stage and blah blah. You know what I did? I like went out there, I took my shoes off, I threw it into the audience, I jumped on the chair, another thing they said I couldn't do, banged the piano, something they said I couldn't do, sat down and then started going crazy. I rocked. That was one of the best shows I did in my life. And then I went to start a school, and everything was fine in the beginning until it got successful. And when it got successful, oh gosh, same thing. This toxic minority comes out to do what they can do to stop you. And it's the same thing. And whatever they go, whatever toxic tools. And the lesson of that for anybody watching is anytime you're going to do anything, you're going to meet this resistance. Because like I was saying before, I truly believe about 10% of the population is this toxic inclination, and about 90% of the population is these people that want to build the world. There's like two ways of surviving, right? So one person looks at the task of life and they say, okay, well, I'm going to build this, I'm going to create this, I'm going to do this. And And then there's a minority of people, and they look at life and they say, well, the only way I'm going to survive is stopping them doing that. The only way I could hope to live is by holding everybody down. Because if they do that, if they all build these things, I'll be nothing. If they all succeed, I'll have even less. And they tend to be people that are failing and not doing well. And that's become a very kind of toxic trait. And instead of like getting back on the path, it becomes this, they're playing a new game now. And the new game is like fucking suppress everybody.
Mhm.
And you're going to have that if you want to do anything. And the bigger you go, what I've realized is as you reach like, if you go from a normal job where you might have like a dynamic of 10 or 15 people in that job, and there might be 1 or 2 people that are horrible, and then you're going to grow. And let's say you go and then you start a coffee shop and you've got like 1,000 people coming through your door each week. Man, you're going to have 100 people that are like, but a couple in particular that are really making it difficult. And then if you grow again, like you want to go online and go like, and make these videos that get 20 million views, go look through my 18,000 comments. At least 1,000 of them are going to be the worst thing you could possibly imagine. And you go in my DMs, and like I said before, it's like, see the love or hate. And then you want to go like my ads, like I do these ads. Some of my ads have had hundreds of millions of views. Same thing. It's like, it's just a bigger scale, a bigger scale, a bigger scale. And each time I go out into the world to try and do something, whatever it is, there's going to be a tiny portion of people that just come and they're trying to cut your nuts off. And it comes to a point where you've just got to go, look, I'm over that game. I don't want to play with you anymore. I've had this since I'm a kid. I used to get bullied at school. You know, teeth were too big. My whole life I've had that. And I look at it, I'm like, look, I'm not going to play the game anymore because you're distracting me from what I came here to do. And for everybody who's watching this, if you've got a goal, if you've got a thing, just focus on the goal, focus on doing it and do it with integrity. Do what you know to be right. Do what is true for you. And then honestly, just fuck everything else. Like, just fuck them. I really wish I did that 10 years ago. My mom tells me this, by the way. It's the advice I can never take. My mom's best advice. She didn't say it quite as rude as I just said it, but honestly, like, just, I know it's the most liberating thing in the world. Just fuck them. Like, let it go and get back on your game. Get back on your mission, because all they're trying to do is take you off it. Their entire motivation is to try and make you stop. Why would you do that? And
And it's not going to make them happier. It's not actually going to
they're just going to move on to the next guy and the next guy. This is what they do. It's their full-time life. They're complainers. They just complain. They go around the world finding holes in everything, you know?
So what you're saying is, if you've got a lot of haters, you've really arrived. You've made it.
Go
I
bigger.
mean,
Why haven't you got more?
you,
What's wrong? Why have you not got more haters? Why so few?
it reminds me of, I mean, just the same advice in different words, but if you don't have anybody having a strong opinion, you're not doing anything worthwhile. If
Yeah.
nobody has a strong opinion about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, it's such an important lesson. And to hear it from someone who is as successful as you, I think is really important. Like, oh, we're part of the club. Like, we're in this together. You're not alone in it. You may feel alone when this negativity and this toxicity is coming at you, but there's a whole, like you said, 90% of the population, they're good people. They want to create, they don't want to tear down. And I think in this world of social media and things like that, we tend to see, we tend to think the negative people are bigger than they
Yeah.
are a bigger group.
Yeah, because that
And
90% of people, they've got jobs, they're working, they're not spending all day long writing these long paragraphs and going on Reddit. Like they don't even know what Reddit is. Like they're employed, they're doing something, they're contributing to the world. They don't have time to spend 6 hours. They're raising a family. Like they don't have time to sit there in the bedroom, in the 3-day-old jogging bottoms writing some more spew.
what makes you feel when you look back? What are you most proud of? What makes you feel like I am successful?
I
I'm
mean, I
doing
don't feel
something
successful, so that's an interesting thing that you would ask me that.
interesting.
Makes me very uncomfortable to be described as like, yeah, it makes me uncomfortable, honestly, because I don't. I feel like I barely got started. And
Mm.
it's like when someone calls me successful, they're putting a full stop on my journey, and I've barely even written the first 2 words of the sentence. I'm like, wait, no. Like, I'm not there. Like, in my mind, I'm like, I want to like with the school, I want to revolutionize again within my area, but people, normal people like my mom,
Mhm.
a nurse in a hospital. What does her album sound like? I was sitting on a wall in North London in Finsbury Park with my friend Oliver before I ever made the school. And we were sitting there looking at people in the street. And I was looking at people, I was like, wow, I had this epiphany. And I was songwriting and I'd been doing this big songwriting session with a huge songwriter who was working with Justin Timberlake, and it was this big opportunity. And record labels throwing money at it. And I was all stressed because I couldn't come up with something. And I was sitting on the wall, and I remember at the time complaining, God, man, everyone writes songs about the same thing. Like 90% of pop songs is just this kind of teenage love story. And I'm like, man, it's a bit boring. And how can you come up with anything original? And there's so much more to life than just that. And I'm sitting on this wall talking to my friend Ollie, and then and I look around at real life, because when you're writing music, you know, you can go into like, it's the beauty of it is all make believe. You can like make anything. It's amazing. Um, I was like back to like being grounded and looking around, and like there's a red bus in London, you know. And I looked around, and I was like, wow, like that dude over there in the corner shop. What would his album sound like? What would his album sound like? I bet he's got an amazing. The people he must meet, the drug addicts that stumble in at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to steal the beer, and he must be scared. Like, do I try? Like, the beer's not really worth very much. They might stab me. Shall I go for it? Man, that'd be an amazing song. Wow. And I see like the delivery guy going, man, I wonder what that's like. Like delivering food, but you can't quite afford to put food on the table for your own family. Man, that would be an amazing. Think about my mum. My mum was an amazing woman. She delivered babies, but you know, many times she come home and either the babies died or the mothers died. What's that album sound like? Like, what would it be like if my mum had music? What would it be like if my mum could do what I'm doing, where she has that tool to sit down and express the otherwise inexpressible? The beauty of music, right? Like we feel this is the human experience. We feel all of this, and this is what our narrow little vocabulary allows us to express. And this is why we have art. Art allows us to express all this other stuff that we feel, but have no other way of quite expressing. So what would happen if these people had that? What would happen, like, and having lived so many of those lives, been a cleaner, worked in a bar, worked in a gym, worked a gift shop, a novelty gift shop, worked in a Starbucks, worked literally shoveling shit.
Mm.
Did car washing, did grass cutting. I did all these random jobs. Investment banker, legal assistant. That was a good one. I'm like, wow, each one of those. And for me, the vision is like, what happens if the whole world has what I've got? What happens if, like, it's really normal that people go to the gym because that's part of like your physical well-being. It's really normal that I just, if you took this away from me, I'd be half a person. And so for me to imagine somebody that doesn't have that, and they're going through the life with all of this bottled up, and all this is happening, and how do they get it out? And then I look and I see like all people have some pretty destructive ways to get that stuff out, whether it's drugs or vandalism, which I see as the same thing. And drugs is just vandalism on your own body. But there's like a lot of people do destructive stuff to try and tame the beast. But this is a really creative thing you can do to lullaby the beast into never even being there anymore. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So to me, it's such a gift that I have in my life. I just want other people to be able to have it. And I want to do that for as long as I'm here because it's super valuable to do. And I see the joy it brings. You asked me what success is. 10 years ago, it would have been like a global hit number one. And I'd still love that. I can't wait. I'm getting into releasing music at the end of this year. I've been working on it for so many years. I'm so excited to start releasing music. That was really one of my biggest fears. So that's going to be really, really exciting. And whatever that does is amazing. Like, I love it because I love playing big audiences. I love playing the stadiums. I love, 2, 3, 5,000 people. It's amazing. Did 28,000 people one time. Did 600,000 people one time in Alpha Music Festival in Russia. That's amazing. I love that because I get to be Freddie Mercury. And I was Freddie Mercury when I was dancing around my bedroom as a 6-year-old. So it's cool to do it for real. But I love even more this idea that irrespective of whatever success or not success I have as an artist, that when I die, there is millions of people all over the world in places I can't even find on a map, and they're putting beauty into their environment, and they're contributing the same thing I contribute to their community, and they get to have that joy, and they get to come home on a hard Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the morning when they can't sleep. Oh, just get into it. Like, and I leave that behind. That is lovely. And right before I did this, and I was having a Zoom session with one of my students. His name is Matt Sortel. He's an amazing, amazing man. And I was interviewing him to ask him about his journey in Ridley Academy. I'm going to put it on the internet. And sitting there and listening to this guy, I think he's late 50s. He's wanted to play piano his whole life. Never really happened. Thought it was too late. Don't have time. He's got serious guy, busy job, blah, blah, blah. Travels all the time, family. And I remember selling him on the phone with my friend 3 years ago. He'd been to like this free class. I'd done a free class. In the free class, I kind of just show you these tricks to show you like how easy it can be. The purpose of that is to reignite the fire. So you can see, it doesn't actually have to be complicated. Like show people some stuff. And then I'm like, right, if you want to do it, come and sign up. So he jumped on the phone and he was like, I really want to do it, but I really don't know if I trust you. And I really don't have time. And I was like, just every single person that comes into our school has the same guarantee. If you go through this entire program and you get to the end and you're not happy, I give you your money back. You have no risk. You have to do the whole program because it doesn't work if you don't do the program. So you got to come in, you got to do it. If you do it, it's going to work for you. And you need 10 minutes a day, not even every day, just 10 minutes here and there. All right, I'll do it. I'm now sitting here. So this is 3 years later. And I remember how hard it was to close this guy who has no confidence in me or him. And now I just did this interview with him and he's sitting there telling me like it's nothing. Like he's forgot what he was before. He's sitting there like, so I could take a song and I'm making it my own. And then I was like adding this bit and I was like doing to that. And then, but I'm really in the show, it like doesn't quite fit with the thing. And I'm like, what? Oh yeah. This guy's going out and he's playing all over Germany in the weekends because he figured out how to play music. Then he starts having jam sessions in his house, gets along with some musicians, makes a band. They make an Instagram. That Instagram gets millions of views. And now he goes around Germany playing concerts, as well as still doing his job and still having a family and all this stuff. And he's talking to me about the problems of coming at that second song in the set. And I'm like, that's amazing. He's describing like the rush. I was asking him the questions like you asked. Well, you didn't ask me actually because we talked mostly about the school, but often when people have interviewed me as an artist, they're like, what's it like on the stage? What's it feel like with this? And I'm now asking him that. And his answers are just like, he's like a 5-year-old child. And it's so cute and it's so amazing. And that's success to me. I'm like, he didn't even realize it. Like I saw this guy at nothing. And now this dude's going out into little towns I've never heard of in who knows where, Germany. And he's putting out music and he's putting out that magic. And I'm sure he's going to inspire a wave of people. And I'm like, that, you do that on scale, you start making a beautiful planet. You do that stuff. Like that's how we can make a more beautiful world. At least, I'm not a coder. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a great engineer. If I was, that's what I'd contribute to the world. I'm a musician. This is what I've got to contribute. And that's what I've got. And I want to give it, and I want to give it on the biggest scale possible. But I really don't want to be successful yet. I don't want anyone thinking I'm successful. I feel like I'm not close to 1%. And, in every area of my life, the bar is so much lower than I want it to be. I'm very hard on myself. I don't think that's a bad thing. I also, I celebrate my own successes, but I demand a lot of myself. I don't want to settle. Because I know it's not that far away that I'm going to be like my dad, laying on the floor, taking my last breath. And I want to look back and go, man, what an adventure. And I want to know that I left a positive stain on this world and that I left something to be proud of, and that, I've got one time to have a good time on this floating rock with all of you people. And I want it to be amazing. I want to be friends with everyone. I want to contribute. I want to be part of the game. And I want to exchange, I want the great scientist to give me a cool thing, and oh, that's so cool, I can use that. And the great masseuse, man, please fix that thing in my back. It's been bugging me. Like, I want to give and receive and give and receiving. Whoever makes a great flat white coffee, like, thank God, I live for you guys. Thank you. Right. And I can give you a song, and like, I love that flow. That's life. That's existence. And to be able to contribute to that on the biggest scale I can possibly come up with, that's living to me. That's a rich life. And I'm so far from that. I would never dream to call myself successful. I'm so far from that. You don't like, but I love the game. I love the game, and I love that I'm doing something that I believe in. I didn't have that for the first 20 years of my life. I was very confused. What should I do in my life? I have something that I believe in, and I love it. And good days and bad days, it's a game I want to play. And I'm very, I just, yeah.
Mm.
Doesn't mean I'm always happy. It just means I'm always fulfilled. I'm always like that. This is cool. And, if I was a doctor, I'd be doctoring, but I'm not. I'm a musician, so I'm musicianing.
Is there any question you wish I would have asked you, or anything you would like to say that you've not had a chance to say yet?
I might never get to meet you, whoever's watching this. I'd love to have a connection with you. You can send me a message on Instagram. I reply to as many of them as I can. You can send us an email. You can come to the school. You can be a student. You can not be a student. You can even be a hater. I don't mind. You can be anything you want to be, but we might not meet each other. And if we don't meet each other, I just want to say, like, I really, really hope your life is an amazing adventure. And it's the scariest thing to do. It's the scariest thing to do. But every now and then I've done concerts or I've spoken, and then people have come away and they look at their life and they go, oh man, you're like, what you're doing sounds so exciting and big and blah, and I'm not doing anything. And I'm a bit conscious of that as I sit here right now. We talked about some big lofty things, right? And you get to make an adventure. I'm a kid from a village. I had a blank piece of paper and a pen, and I started scribbling. And a lot of what I wrote wasn't very good. And now I'm fumbling around and I'm like building a life, right? And you're doing the same thing. And everybody in this world has an amazing life. We're all creating this amazing life. But if you're sitting there, if a tiny part of you is sitting there going, man, like, I wish I was doing something, blah, blah, then just break it down into steps and take step one. Just do step one today, whatever it is. If in any way, like, my worst thing is when people send me a thing like, oh, that was really motivational. Motivation comes from the Latin word motare, which means to move. It's only motivational if you move. So move, get into motion. Don't just, and I'm talking to myself when I say this, because sometimes when I'm on social media and I see a great video and I watch it, I can sometimes leave it feeling a bit sad, like, oh God, their life's amazing. Oh, I'm not doing anything. And there's so many things to be interested in this world. But if you're sitting there and you've got goals, if you're sitting there and you've got something like, you have a value to contribute to this world, whatever it is. Maybe you're great with hair. Maybe you're a great listener. Maybe you're an amazing mother. Maybe you're great with fixing knees. I don't know. Like, you've got something to do in this world. And whatever that is, that's your lane. That's your lane. And you can contribute so much more than you might think. And it's so exciting and it's so challenging. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever did. And it's going to be amazing. And you can get wrinkles. And it's going to be great. You're going to get scrapes on your knees and bruises. And I want it for everybody. I really do. I want it for everybody, because life's a gift. And I just wanted to end with that because I'm a sentimental old fart.